Homeless man dumped a bucket of stuff on your head.
A bucket of his diarrhea. I didn't want it to be in my mouth, but it was running down my eyes.
Hey, my lovely listeners, this is your girl, Kissing Static. Thank you for watching my channel, Kissing Static. I really appreciate you watching and consuming, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and share if you care. I really appreciate, just all of the love that I've received, I really appreciate you guys being my listeners and my followers. So far, I have 97 subscribers, and that's been a really incredible feature for me as somebody who's been very inconsistent with this, with these videos. And I've always wanted to be a YouTuber ever since I got out of high school, but almost close to 10 years later, and I still haven't really done much, but I'm here anyway. Okay, so today I wanted to bring you a video out of LA. Okay, so San Francisco, not even San Francisco, but California, you already know, has a high issue with homelessness, and this is actually happening all across the world, all across the United States, but for the most part, it's super bad in California. And so today, this video is talking about a woman who had an encounter with a homeless person where he literally dumped diarrhea on her head, and even though she's been harmed and traumatized by this experience, she goes on to talk about how it's not she recognizes that these homeless people need help, they need services, they need mental health services, and it's just not there. So she doesn't call for incarceration of people of this happening. She calls for actual help and service, because once you incarcerate somebody, there's probably little to no chance that they'll actually receive the kind of help we all need to be enacting and pushing forward. So please watch the rest of this news clip, and then I'm going to give the rest of my comments. So thanks.
Just steps away from the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a horrifying random attack.
A homeless man dumped a bucket of stuff on your head.
A bucket of his diarrhea. I didn't want it to be in my mouth, but it was running down my eyes.
For over a year, the NBC4i team has been tracking crimes where the suspects are homeless. Tonight, we have learned those incidents are skyrocketing. Investigative reporter Joel Grover reports on the growing threat linked to the untreated mental illness and drug addiction on LA's streets of shame.
Keep your eye on the woman walking out of this apartment building. A homeless man approaches and suddenly smacks her in the head. There are now thousands of crimes a year like this one in which the suspects are homeless, and in many cases suffering from mental illness or substance abuse.
It's so traumatic. Sorry.
Heidi Vantassel was walking to her car near Hollywood's Walk of Fame when, according to police and court records, a transient with schizophrenia and psychotic disorders dumped feces all over her.
A bucket of his diarrhea. It was liquid, hot liquid. I was soaked, and I couldn't see it was coming off of my eyelashes into my eyes.
Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, and she now needs to be tested for infectious diseases every 3 months.
It's something I won't ever forget. It was disgusting.
For over a year, the I-Team has been reporting on crimes where the suspects are homeless, like this guy arrested for setting fire to chairs at a downtown steakhouse, and this homeless man pushing someone in front of a truck. There were more than 6,000 of these reported crimes in LA in 2017. By the end of 2018, the number of crimes was up more than 50%. And now we've learned the numbers are on track to climb even higher this year. We found case after case where the suspects suffer from mental illness or methamphetamine abuse. Meth use has been linked to violence, and so is untreated mental illness.
How could you live in this kind of environment and be okay?
You mean mentally okay?
Mentally okay.
Reverend Andy Bales runs the Union Rescue Mission. Does life on the streets lead to violent behavior?
Absolutely.
Like the attack on that woman on a downtown LA street. Keep watching. Just seconds later, the man punched another victim, attorney Brandon Cohen. Were you kind of in shock when it happened?
What was shocking was that I lived here for 4 years and it didn't happen sooner.
We found the homeless who are arrested for these crimes are often right back on the streets without getting any treatment or help.
I am always on the lookout.
We discovered that Brandon Cohen's attacker, Charles Fuller, had 4 previous felony convictions. But after he attacked Cohen, the cops simply gave him a citation for battery and let him go. 4 months later, a block away, a similar attack against this mother and daughter. Though the police didn't make an arrest, so the suspect wasn't identified.
They need treatment for be it drugs or mental illness.
Nobody touch it.
Like Jose Rio Frio, who made headlines in New York for stalking a TV anchor. He moved to LA, where he was convicted of threatening to kill a security guard. Last May, he wandered away from this psychiatric facility and has since been on the LAPD's missing persons list. But the I-team found him hiding in plain sight, sitting day after day,
I'm not married.
yelling at people from this Hollywood bus bench. Right now, you're still suffering from mental health issues.
Yeah, sure.
It was awful. And it changed my life.
Heidi Vantassel says she's experiencing PTSD from that attack 7 months ago.
It's changed the way I feel walking on the street.
Court records show her attacker was charged with battery and taken to jail.
He doesn't need jail time, he needs mental health care. I have empathy for him because he needs help.
Heidi's attacker was found mentally incompetent to stand trial, and prosecutors tell the I-team he's now back on the streets.
I'll never, ever forget his face.
Heidi Vantassel says there should be help, not just for the mentally ill suspects in these crimes, but also for the victims. According to text messages she showed me, the LAPD told her their victim's advocate would contact her to offer her services. But Heidi says the victim's advocate never got in touch.
NBC4 is committed to covering the homeless crisis with our Streets of Shame series. If you have a story idea, send an email to tips@nbcla.com.
Okay, you guys just watched that video, and I had a few notes to give you guys about this whole situation. Just my opinions, my observations, things that matter to me in this situation. Basically because I just feel like this all, everything's like full circle. The rich gets richer, the poor gets poor. This is what it looks like on the bottom sort of deal. And unfortunately, Heidi is only one of millions of people who will pay the price because we are not proactively dealing with this trauma, this pain in our society. I wanted to side note real quick. A few years ago, I watched a video where I think it was one of those 30 days in lockup sort of deal, or one of those videos where it was one of those shows where an undercover agent goes into, or some sort of entity, right? Some sort of person who's not actually incarcerated goes into, gets voluntarily incarcerated, right? And I want to say it was either a cop or somebody who was becoming a corrections officer or something. He goes into jail to see what it was like, or just to become like a, observer, see what needed to be changed or something like that, right? And I remember him giving what is it called? He was giving notes on how they can change the system, or change the reality of what goes down, the illegal stuff or the horrible stuff that goes down in incarceration in this particular jail or this particular prison. How they could change it, right? So I guess the jail when he was in had a lot of issues with somebody trying to attack him, basically him, it was somebody trying to attack him, somebody, like a lot of conspiratorial stuff, some I think illegal stuff was getting into the prison and stuff. So this man, this undercover agent, was trying to give the warden and I believe like the correction officers some insight on how they can change it, right? So I guess the warden, or I don't know if he was like the warden itself or like the person under the warden, but either way, you could see that he was listening to him, but you could tell on his face he's not gonna do a damn thing about it. Like we want Our society wants people to suffer. We want people to be in these jails away from the major population and to be harmed and to get hurt and to suffer trauma. That's what we want when we sentence people to jail. So I was on a jury a few years back, and I remember thinking that no matter, even if I think this person's guilty for murdering this woman, there's no way I'm gonna sentence him. I will still say not guilty, because there's no, like, he's gonna get sentenced and then just get re-traumatized instead of effort actually being made to change him, to change his behavior. And that is the quintessential issue that I have with our justice system, our systems, you know, all this stuff that leads to people ultimately having mental illness in our country. We have high rates of mental health issues. And a part of it is because everything's commercialized, everything's capitalized, like you have to have money for everything. And when you can't have that, you don't have any support. You are literally nothing to a system that only recognizes the only form of language that really matters is the green, is the money. The private sector is way more powerful than the public sector, and thus they control the public sector. So back to the side note story is that this man or this agent trying to tell these people, hey, change this, this, and this, and you'll have a smoother running system. And all the stuff was so basic. He's like, you won't have this if you do this. I don't even remember what the thing was, what the two thing was, but you could, the change that he was offering, it was something like, you know, if you have them doing something other than sitting there all day. That was one of his things, which is such a common thing. It's the same thing with children. If you have them doing something, they won't get into the violence that a lot of these the incarcerated gets into. Like, that is, it's the quintessential thing. Have them doing something of value, you know, because a lot of people that aren't, you know, contracted into slave labor in the prisons or the jails or whatever. A lot of these people that aren't contracted into these things, they'll just sit them there all day doing nothing at all whatsoever. Why does that matter to me? Why does that matter to me? It matters because, hold on. Because these people who are doing nothing all day are ultimately getting traumatized in our prison system, in our jail systems, and the people that are running it do not care because it's just a form of a paycheck for them. It's just a form of benefits. So if all they have to do is go in there and, you know, make sure everybody is in their cell, or, you know, make sure all these things the boxes are checked off, but they're not really checking in to see if these humans are good or if they're growing or if they're, you know, I get when you commit a crime, it's bad and you need to, you know, in a way pay restitution, but why do we treat people like fucking animals? Because we don't care, and we give them the bare minimum of things for them to just make it to that next day. And the other thing too is that the incarceration itself, like just having your time away from society, is the punishment. Why are we punishing them further with more trauma, more pain, lack of nutrition, lack of mental health services, lack of medical health services, lack of human activity, lack of mental stimulation, slave labor? Why are we having them be animals, and then we expect them to come out into normal society? Because that's what we do. We let them out into normal society, and then we ask ourselves, why aren't they acting right? And also, we don't allow them to get jobs. Like, we don't allow them to get apartments. There's a whole host of things, and a lot of times this is a system that was built on racism, so that's why it mostly affects Black and brown people. But even white people get caught into this system. Even Mexican people get caught into the system. Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, Chinese, Indians, they get, you know, they get drafted into the system when clearly it's another form of racism that was perpetuated for Black people, because you can see how much they don't care and why slavery is still a thing in these prisons. I don't know who said it, but like corporations are like the new slave master. It's just become more private and public control. We're publicly controlling slavery, but being contracted out by privatization. So basically that's what it is. It's like without, because it's not other public, as far as I understand, it's not other public institutions contracting out most of the slave labor, right? So I think there's like firefighters, which could be seen as public entities, right? Public situation, public contracting, right? But for the most part, everything else, it's I guess I'm wrong, actually. I think nope, I'm right. Most of the slave labor contracted through prisons are private prisons, or private companies, excuse me, you guys, sorry. Okay, so the reason why I bring all this up and why it all matters is because ultimately they have there's like this sick need to keep people in prison for this and to keep them coming back. And there's, in poverty, there's, especially when you criminalize the poor and poorer people's behavior, when they're poor, like stealing and stuff to figure out how to survive another day. And something that James Baldwin said, he said, it's hard enough for a Negro or a black person or a black man to survive. It's hard for him to even survive 24 hours. And I'm like, damn, that one blew my mind, because when you look at these graphics, that's what, when you see people stealing, like doing things that they really don't want to do it. They really don't want to go to that CVS that we keep seeing on the news, getting looted by clearly a black homeless person, somebody who is run out of options and that's his last option. And instead of saying like, oh, we need to help him, the first thing I see on the news by somebody who has been pretty liberal is like, why aren't we locking more people up? We don't need to lock more people up. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't work, because we're not changing the aspect of poverty in our country, and that's what we need to focus on. Okay, so where are we at? So there was something I wanted to say. Okay, so I'm going to just go through my notes, you guys, and hopefully you guys are still with me. So these people come from somewhere. I wanted to talk about that. The people who are on the streets come from somewhere. They're probably just people who, why are there, it makes you think about how there's all these people who are just running out on their luck and running out of money. When you run out of money, you're at the end of, no, you have no rope. You're just out in the streets, and then from the streets you have nothing. It's extremely hard to pull yourself up from nothing. I'm not saying it can't be done, because it definitely has, especially if you're able-bodied. But if you're like that man who has mental health issues, or that man that decided to dump some diarrhea on this lady's head, or the man that I saw about 2 years ago, where he was in San Francisco on the street with no arms, he had one leg, no arms, no legs, sitting in a wheelchair. And I'm like, who is gonna help him? He is nothing. How is he even getting around? That's my point. Like, he was just looking at everybody. You can tell how scared he was. Kind of creepy. So it was creepy because it's like, there's nobody to help him. He's not getting around. There's nobody to feed him. I imagine he's going to be dead within 2 weeks if somebody doesn't help him, So these people come from somewhere. So they come from somebody's home. They come from somebody's mom. Maybe they're aging out of the foster care system. Like, there's just so many what ifs, and where is it, in Oakland, California right now, I don't know if it's anywhere else, but they have a whole a small little tiny house village of homeless teens that have, like, they don't have access to their parents or what. They're just homeless teens because their parents just ran out of money, or because of or whatever the situation is, because the system is overpopulated. Like, this is what happens when we don't do our checks and balances. We don't get people on the right track. Like, we don't make sure that our citizens are our state is funded right. This is what happens when you have our defense, our military budget is the highest in the world, and then everything else comes way after that. When that comes first and everything comes way after, this is what happens. And it's, in my opinion, when people, go through this, when people have nothing, that's where a safety net should step in. And most people probably wouldn't experience the level of mental health issues that we have in this country if we had some safety net, if we have a broader, bigger safety net that can apply to everybody. I'm not saying there's people out there that wouldn't abuse it, but I am saying that most people would use it to get a leg up. That's really in my opinion. And if there are people who just want to sit on welfare, then why don't we just let them sit on welfare? Like, again, we're like, oh, we're wasting money if we do that. We waste money anyway. And my thing is, it's like, let's say we did fund people, if welfare did fund people sitting at home, I'm telling you, most people would probably take that time to learn a new skill and pay back into the system. But we don't see that. We don't really care about that. Because we just want to judge. We just want to be angry at people being humans. There are people who have made it and have made it a thing to say, to like point the finger. And it's interclass. Like, I see other class people, like other people within our working class and within working class pointing at other people. And we look at homeless people and just think that's how they deserve to be there for some reason. Probably something they did. Even if they did deserve, like, let's say we take the worst of the worst. Somebody murdered somebody and raped somebody. And for the most part, why do we sit them in jail? Even if we're going to kill them, we'll sit them in there for years and years and years. And we don't just kill them right away. A lot of people are still, even if we'll sit them on death row doing nothing because we just don't value human life. In my opinion, I don't see that. I don't think that that's what we should be doing. I genuinely think we should be investing into people, even people in prison, because those people can also help the people that are out, such as, I don't know, like making sure that they can code and keep prison up to date. I don't know, giving them a purpose so that when they come out, they don't just feel purposeless, and one day lead you being led to dumping diarrhea on someone's head. Okay, so there's that. So here's my next note. Police and incarceration isn't the answer. It's not the answer. I don't know if you guys already heard that in my tone and what I was saying, but police and incarceration isn't the answer. They're mostly trained to shoot you. Like, that's it. I get it for somebody who's in we pay these people to be the heroes that we don't want to be. And I realize that in our society, we do a lot to pay people a lot to do things that humans are already equipped to do, right? Or should already be doing on their own. Like, we shouldn't even have to pay anybody to be a hero. There should be a hero in every corner of our society, in every community and everything. But unfortunately, we pay people to do things that should already be normalized within us, such as I noticed that there was a cuddling care. Like, there's people being paid to cuddle people because they don't have that in their life. And a lot of times it's older people, grandparents, people who are in their 70s, 80s, because their family is just not hanging out with them and see no use for them. That's another sickness for in our society. Police and okay, so I'm gonna try to keep going because I don't want to make this into an hour. So I'm gonna cut myself short in some of my speech. Crime is up because there's no safety net. So crime is a correlation to the poverty that people are experiencing and how many people keep getting kicked out of the capitalist state. Like, just running out of money is a fucking problem. And honestly, they should teach money and wealth in schools so people can know how to manage themselves when they get out of school. But they don't do that, especially in public schools. It should be a mandatory class for people who are in public schools. It should be tried, true, and tested. They should have exercises and everything so that when they get out, that whatever system that they get out into, that they can apply that behavior and those notes to that new system. Even if they don't become a financial banker or something like that, like, they can still count on the money that they figure out how to save. They can count that it will help them in a way. Crime is up because there's no safety net. Oh, also, I have a bone to pick with how we tie our entire selves to our jobs. And I don't just mean like us overworking, but it's our health care, our dental care in some cases, our eye care, our like where we get our sick time, our paid time off. It's our entire lives. And in the US, that's how we tie people to shit. That's why freedom, especially financial freedom, matters, because we need to be able to afford these things on our own, so we won't have to be tied to our jobs, especially if we're experiencing yeah, I'm sorry, you guys, especially if we're experiencing not food, but especially if we're experiencing like, I don't know, sickness. Yeah, I don't know, you guys. I'm sorry. The mucus is in my head, so I'm trying to do this. Anyway, yeah. Okay. After incarceration and homelessness, mentally ill people have ill mental health. Oh, after incarceration and homelessness, ill mental health and drug addiction use become higher, or drug use becomes higher. After prison and jail, people are more likely to commit crime because there's no safety net after somebody comes out of jail or prison. You're not really free. I don't believe you're free when you're homeless. Like that's not a form of freedom. That's a form of that's another prison, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about every type of homelessness, but the vast majority of homelessness that goes down in the States. There's no such thing as a missing person, or how that guy wandered away. Cops didn't look for him. They probably didn't even approach him because he's not affecting anybody's business. He's just sitting there, and they don't really approach you if you're, for the most part, if they might approach you if they're trying to cause harm to you, or they might approach you, but they're not looking for you. They're not gonna go up to every homeless person and look for them. Heidi, the woman being interviewed, now has the beginning stages of mental illness. You can see it in her how she's talking about how she's scared of going out, or she's hypervigilant and stuff. That is the beginning stages of homelessness. This is a housed woman, very capable on her own, very able-bodied, probably didn't have that much trauma, going forward, depending on her past. And now here she is traumatized because we have yet to deal with the problem of homelessness, of incarceration. These problems all coincide together. Homelessness, incarceration, prison, justice system. I had a judge when I was on a trial, or when I was on a jury. I was on jury selection. I didn't get selected, but I was on jury selection. They were trying to select people, right? The judge asked everybody to throw out of their mind about how the justice system treats prisoners. He was like, "Oh, I know you guys have all this information, and I know you have your ideas, but you guys gotta push that aside and stick with the facts of the case." And I'm like, fuck no. Like, I know I probably already told this story, but this matters because this is why, because most times that boy or whoever was on trial was gonna get out in, let's say, 50 years, because he was real young. He was like 12. He was only 50 years. If he got out in 50 years, because sometimes if this was their first offense, a judge will go lenient and still give him a light sentence instead of life. And in 50 years, he gets out, and he is that person shitting in a bucket and pouring it on that lady's head. This is my point here. Y'all, this is my point here. Because a traumatized person, so is this thing is that we subject people to inhumane, and when we treat people like human, they come out acting like humans. Not saying that some people don't come out wanting better for themselves or doing better for themselves, but I am saying that a lot of these people come out to traumatize the people in the, you know, in the rest of the society. And that's what I want to stop and want to mitigate. I'm hoping to stop that or mitigate it. I don't know what I would do. I don't know. But by doing these videos, that's like my point, is I'm hoping to stop the trauma that comes out of our aggressive police state, our aggressive incarceration state, all of the what is it called, the systems. Like, we have our police system, our incarceration system, we have the homeless system. There's another word for system and I can't think of it right now, but this is basically what I'm saying, is that all of it encompasses together, and it all has an effect. Most of these people, not most of them, many of them have been to jail and prisons, couldn't figure out how to put their lives together. I remember seeing a not even an ad, it was a mini documentary about how in Louisiana, and I'm sure this happens other places, where these people are in jail, in prison. It was a woman and man and a few other people, but I'm focusing on the woman and the man, how this woman and man had been incarcerated with no trial. How is that legal? Why is there not a statute of limitations on how long somebody can be in jail before you try them? They had no trial date set, and a part of it is because they will not plea out. There is nobody there to help them. They're gonna sit in jail for years, just like Khalif Browder. And you know, even if they come out, even if they've done, like, let's say the messed up part would be if they served 5 years and still got an extra 5 years with no time served. Like, it doesn't, these things are crazy. Because I mean, at that point, what is it called? At that point, evidence seems like it's not as evidential, you know, depending on how they got these people in jail. This one lady and this man who were like, I lost everything. I lost my car. I lost my house. I have nothing. These people have nothing anymore because they went to jail. They're not even on trial. They haven't been found guilty, but they've been in jail for years. How is that legal? But it's legal because they're poor. Let me tell you that. If you're poor, you are illegal. And they will tell you every day that you have to pay a fine, that you have to pay street parking, that you have to do anything. They will tell your ass, you're illegal being here, being poor. What the United States doesn't like the most is poor people. We fucking hate poor people. That's how I see it. Because if we like poor people, or not even like them, but if we really wanted to help people, we would. And we don't like poor people. Okay, let's see. Heidi, the woman being interviewed, now has the beginning stages of mental illness. Okay, because a traumatized person. Okay, my end point is we need to proactively deal with this because it affects the working class. What does it mean to be mentally incompetent, to stand trial but not get help? So this guy, the last guy here, that was found wandered away from the facility that nobody dared to look for, apparently, is what does it mean? Like, my question about that situation was, what does it mean to be mentally incompetent, to stand trial but not get help? So I'm so sorry, you guys. That's not what that meant. This was about how the person that dumped the diarrhea actually got let off because he was found mentally incompetent and released back into the streets. This is our justice system does not fucking work. It does not work. This is the thing. If he was mentally competent, they would subject him to prison and then probably prison labor. My hope for all those people in prison is that they start acting real crazy, because the thing is, they need people who are competent to be in these prisons. That's the only thing I can think of this is we need competent people to be in prison, to stand trial, to be in prison, so that they'll know what they did. So what is the step if this person kills someone? What's the next step? If this person is found mentally incompetent and he kills somebody, what's the next step for this man? That's my question. What is the next step for this man who may kill somebody? If he can't stand trial, do we put him in a facility and then let him out 5 years later? Or what? What's the point? So So basically my next comment under that was, meaning they held him and then just released him back into the public to continue causing harm until a police shoot. Yeah, so that's my other thing. I believe that a police is just gonna shoot him. A person that can legally shoot him, either that or some random person on the street is gonna shoot him. Because that's the only observation that I can make about this situation, is that he's gonna cause too much harm, or harm in front of a police officer, or get the police called on him, and the police are gonna shoot him because they do not care, and they'll be able to get away with it, and because he's a danger, and then we're all gonna be like, oh, the police had the right to shoot him. Yeah, the police had the right to shoot him, but they didn't have to shoot him if we would take these cues and say, okay, that he's not mentally competent to stand trial, most likely means that he's not mentally competent to be on the street. They're not mentally competent to be a working human, a working class human. And the thing is, I want what's happening here to affect those rich elites' bottom line. That's what I want. That's my hope, is that it'll get so bad that this will come down to whoever the ruling class. Because, and I just hope it comes into their daughter's bedroom, or their son's bedroom, or, you know, something like that. I just hope it comes to them personally, because the thing is that we're clamping down on the poor because it's beneficial for the elites for whatever reason. And I think it's disgusting. Like, why can't we change this? Why can't we do something about it? Why hasn't something been done about it? The big part of the reason is because the people that can do something about it are financially struggling. That is the working class people financially struggling. One of the biggest issues that they're struggling on, housing. If we start housing, if we start figuring out these little steps to make sure that people are way more stable, we can get things going. We can change things. But we have to deal with housing first and then work our way out, because housing, I really believe, is one of the biggest issues in our country, because everything's almost marketed as this luxury style housing. And I hate to say luxury, but I'm saying most people can't afford, many people under the poverty line can't afford basic housing. Many people at the poverty line can't afford basic housing. Many people a little bit above the poverty line cannot afford basic housing. Anywhere near the poverty line, you can't afford basic housing. There are people who are making maybe $40,000 a year still struggling for housing, because the reason why I say $40,000 a year is struggling for housing is because that doesn't, especially in California, you really aren't, all you're doing is driving to work and working and then coming right back. And you don't have a life. And within that life, when I say life, you don't really have a social circle. At $40,000 a year, you really don't have the social circle that you would want. You really don't have, you're struggling because of inflation, and your wages need to go up. You need to be making $50,000 to $60,000 a year to be okay. But I'm telling you, people making $40,000 a year are not well. Like, they're especially in California. I'm sorry, everywhere else maybe fine, whatever, but especially in California. Okay, y'all, I've talked a long time, and I hope that I'm trying to figure out my style of delivery, and I really want to make it under 30 minutes, maybe about 20 minutes next time. I mean, that's what I'm going to shoot for. My next video is 20 minutes. So if you've listened to me and you've listened this long, I appreciate you. But so yeah, next time 20 minutes. And thank you for listening to me through my cold. I really appreciate it. Hopefully my next video, I'm gonna definitely do a lot more work for my next video to be a bit more either interactive or, you know, definitely shorter in the delivery, you know, speech side. Y'all, thank you for watching Kissing Static. I really appreciate you. All right, bye.